My name is Shontay Lundy, and I'm the creator and founder of Black Girl Sunscreen. So I am originally from upstate New York, by the way of South Florida, where I earned my MBA in business. And I got my undergrad from SUNY Cortland, very proud of that. And I was in corporate America for about 12 years in South Florida. And when I rotated out of corporate America, I decided to move to Los Angeles. And I did that with no job, no place to live. What it allowed me to do was reset my mind. So here in Los Angeles, I was big on hiking, doing yoga, walking my dog. And by the way, this was 10 years ago. So in 2016, I was new to the city and wondering how people just kind of did nothing throughout the day. And it was quite intriguing. So, during my hikes, and during kind of like, I wouldn't say soul searching, but just taking a moment from everyday life, my friends would ask me, Shantay, so you're outside like every day hiking, are you wearing sunscreen? And my answer was, I mean, do you see this complexion? Like, why would I be wearing sunscreen? And they're like, because you burn. And I'm like, I don't burn, but okay, let me just see what I could find, right? Because they did have a point. Like I was outside like every day. And I was getting darker, but I wasn't necessarily like burning. So one day I get on onto Google and I put in keywords such as, sunscreen for, brown skin, sunscreen for ethnic skin, sunscreen for black skin, sunscreen for black women, and came up shorthanded. And I was like, okay, so these brands are clearly, there's brands of sunscreen out there, but they don't say, you know, for my skin type. And the biggest issue of why Black people at the time, this was 10 years ago, brown people didn't wear sunscreen was because of the white cast. Now, in everyday regimen, the typical behavior of a brown and black person is when you get out of the shower, you're moisturizing, you're hydrating your skin. So when you come across a product that does quite the opposite, it is a complete turn off. So when I noticed that companies weren't necessarily speaking that language, I asked myself three questions, right? Because this was also during a time where I saw my peers going into hair care, starting hair care businesses, starting skincare businesses, starting clothing line businesses, and it was about this like black girl magic thing, and I felt so inspired, but I didn't know like what I was supposed to do during that time. And once the sunscreen conversation came up, I had to ask myself questions like, hey, number one, will other Black women, and our vernacular has expanded over the years. So we weren't saying Black and brown, we were just saying Black at the time because that's a difference. So will Black women wear this product, right? Number two, do I have the resources to make a product? And then number three, do I have the confidence? And once all three of those questions were answered, it was like, okay, you're going to be making a sunscreen product. I think historically, um, sunscreen companies have, honestly, it's hard to say, but we'll say it, right? Like they, Black people, brown people haven't been the focus. They've been formulating for folks that they think get sunburn, right? So if we jump to the extreme of why sunscreen exists, and that's to prevent melanoma and skin cancer, right? Historically, Black and brown people, the number's low, right? We don't skew as high as non-people of color. So with that information, I believe the thought process is like, okay, well, this isn't for them, right? So if there's no data behind a certain group of people being prone to get something, then there is no fix, there is no remedy. So that's the historics of it. I also think that sunscreen brands were super brazen, meaning like, this is what we're making. You have no other option. We're putting on the shelf. You buy. You look crazy. Doesn't matter. There's no other choice. And that's the point that is so disturbing and so just rude, if you will, because why don't I have an option of how I want to appear using a certain product that is supposed to keep me healthy, my skin healthy? So it's not just sunscreen companies, right? It's the people behind the sunscreen company because really a sunscreen company is kind of like a distributor, right? Because you have the people that are formulating, so you have the chemists, then you have the contract manufacturer that is mass producing, and then you have the sunscreen company that's like, okay, I can do this and I can craft a story behind why a consumer should wear it and how they're identifying to a brand. And then there's a retailer, right? If you sell on retail, saying like, yeah, okay, we believe the story. Let's see if the consumer believes the story. And then you have marketers that, amp it up or don't amp it up, right? And I think marketers have a big role in this too, right? I would say pre 2000, man, to pre 2019, right? Marketers and writers, editors were not writing a sunscreen article during non-sunscreen season. And what I mean by that, if you think about, anything after, let's just say August, all the way until like Feb, no one's talking about sunscreen. And that has to do with publications and media, right? So they even kept us in a bubble of when and how to wear sunscreen. So I think that there's a lot of hands into why people of color, Black people, didn't wear sunscreen. And to this day, there are still a lot of people that don't wear it daily. And you hear me getting passionate about it because this is a problem. 70% of Americans don't wear sunscreen. So here we are, with whatever brand that's on the shelf, and you go to put it on, it doesn't matter if it's mineral or synthetic, you're still looking the same and it doesn't feel good. And there are so many movies where everybody knows who's the tourist, right? Because they have on their sunscreen, maybe something on their nose, they might be sunburned, and that's just what you have on the shelf. So then you have the healthcare professionals, right, that aren't really learning how to treat skin of color. They're not recommending, hey, after these procedures, make sure you put on your SPF. Estheticians, after a facial, they should be telling their clients wear SPF. That's not what you always get. So there's just multiple layers of why Black people and brown people have been left out of the conversation, and it's because it's a lack of education. Testing is extremely important for us. We've seen formulas come back not um, with the proper numbers, right? So if we're saying, hey, we're going to formulate a product that's, I don't know, let's just say an SPF 50, and it comes back at an SPF level of 45, right? We don't put it out. We keep trying, we revise until we get the desired outcome. And that's what's important is being honest on what the product actually is. So that's one thing that Black Girl Sunscreen does to ensure that our customers getting what we say they're getting. We're also very mission driven and community driven. So we adhere to Black Girl Sunscreen, no white cast. We make you feel good and look good. And we might go through, 10 iterations of a formula to achieve whatever it is we say that we're trying to do. And if that is no white cast, then that is truly no white cast. And if that is, we make you feel good and look good, that's subjective, right? Because each person has an idea of how they want their skincare to feel. So if it's supposed to be lightweight, then we're trying our best to do that, right? If it's supposed to maybe be hydrating and a little bit heavier, then we're trying to do that. So that's how we're ensuring that our consumer is getting, I guess, the best formula that Black Girl Sunscreen can give.